Most new managers think about performance, getting it right, and proving they deserve the title. But here's what's missing. Every time you absorb what isn't yours, whether it's your boss's indecisions, your team's emotions, or your peers' unresolved problems, you're not leading, you're overfunctioning. And your first year leading either builds you into a strong leader or quietly sets the stage for burnout. Hi, I'm Jen Arnold, and I help new leaders navigate their first people management role. Most new managers don't set boundaries at all. Not because they don't want to, but because when you're new and you're trying to prove yourself, saying yes is the safest play. But there's a problem with that. The problem is that boundaries just don't appear if you don't set them. They get set for you by your boss, by your team, by people who have no idea what you can actually sustain. And they'll keep piling on until you say something. And the data proves this. More than half of managers report burnout. And managers are 36% more likely to burn out than the people they manage. That's because you have your own goals, your own work, plus the emotional weight and stress of your entire team. And you're being asked to do more with less. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to set boundaries in 3 directions: with your boss, with your team, and with your peers. And what I want you to notice by the end is that overfunctioning looks different in every direction, but the costs, they're always the same. The first direction is upward, with your boss. This is the one most new managers avoid the longest because it is likely the highest risk relationship for you to push back on. But you can do it in a way that gets your point across and shares your limits. There's a few places where your boss can trample over boundaries. And the first place is scope creep. A new project lands on your desk. A favor asked one time becomes a standing responsibility. Maybe the corporate priorities have shifted, and you say yes because you don't know how to say anything else. So if it is happening to you, use what I call the priority check. You go to your boss and say, I'd love to take this on. How does this fit in with my current priorities? And name them. Because they may look at the priorities you're naming and saying, those are not the priorities I want you to actually focus on. So be really clear with what you already have on your plate. By asking them how it fits in with your current priorities, you're not refusing, but you're forcing your boss to give you a real decision. Because over time, if you keep saying yes without something being taken off your plate, you are going to get burnout. Your leadership doesn't understand what's on your to-do list unless you tell them. Asking for priorities or asking to negotiate priorities does not make you weak. It makes you strategic. All right, another place where I've seen a lack of boundaries between a boss and a direct report is in after-hours communication. So I work with a team, and the leader of that team likes to call some of his leaders after hours. Several of his direct reports have young kids. So this really bothered one of his direct reports. So her instinct was to just ignore it. She said, I'm going to show him my boundaries. And my advice to her was, no, not show, don't tell. It's tell your boundaries, then show them. Because if you're not communicating that you don't like how something is functioning, you're not sending a message, you're leaving a gap. And guess what? Your boss is going to fill in that gap with a story. And chances are it's not going to be a generous one. So you may appear disengaged, checked out, not committed, even though your priority is your kids right then. So instead, have the conversation. I want you to know I'm fully committed to this role. After 6 o'clock, I'm at my kid's event, so I can't get the phone. If something's urgent, text me and I'll respond. Otherwise, I'll get back to you first thing in the morning. That is naming your boundaries. He doesn't know he's crossed a boundary if you're not naming it. So it's important to tell, then show. Now, the relationship with your boss, it's high stakes, it's very visible. So with your team, it's a different dynamic. And the boundary failures with your team are ones most managers don't even realize they're making. The second direction is downward, with your team. This one sneaks up on you because it doesn't feel like a boundary failure. It feels like leadership. The first place this shows up is when your team gets stuck and is struggling. Whether they don't know the answer, a meeting's quiet because no one is speaking up, and you jump in. Because you know it's faster and easier, and after all, you want them to succeed. But every time you jump in, you're teaching them that them being stuck is a signal to wait on you. The boundary isn't just what you say no to, it's also what you stop doing for them. So instead of jumping in at the earliest stage of silence, pause and ask some questions. What do you think we should do? What could be a good next step? and let the silence sit. That discomfort that you're feeling is not a problem to solve. That's the work happening. The second place where there tends to be no or weak boundaries is the underperformer. Someone on your team isn't pulling their weight. And instead of you having the hard conversation with them, you reroute or absorb the work. So maybe you're covering for them in meetings, you're carrying their share, or you redirect the work to a high performer, and then they're getting burnout. Now, I've seen this in two separate situations with two different leaders in different organizations. In both situations, when the underperformer is struggling, the leader absorbed the work, just took it over. The direct reports got out of doing the work, and they got out of a hard conversation. So here's what that costs you. Protecting one person from accountability is punishing everyone else. Your high performers see it because they're watching. And every time you don't address it, you're signaling that standards are optional. It also shows that you have two different standards for the team, one for high performers and one for underperformers. How do you think that makes your high performers feel? So the boundary here isn't necessarily a performance conversation. It's a decision. The consequences of underperformance belong to the person underperforming, not you. Let them struggle. Help them, yes, but let them struggle a bit. Let them fail if you must, but quit carrying the work for them. The third place I've seen a lack of boundaries is more subtle. It shows up in the day-to-day running of your team. Maybe you're creating all the meeting agendas, the one-on-one templates, the icebreakers. And I had a coaching client who took notes in every single team meeting. Every single one. Not because that was her job, but because no one else wanted to do it. And she wanted to make sure there was a record of what happened. So she owned it every week. On top of everything else she was carrying, even if she facilitated the meeting. Here's what she hadn't noticed. No one else ever had to step up because she already had. So this is what I call the facilitation trap. You start running things because you think it's your job, but also because it's easier than watching them not happen. And before long, you're managing the meeting, you're managing the notes, you're managing the follow-up on top of your actual job. The boundary here isn't saying, I'm not taking notes anymore. It's letting that gap exist long enough for someone else to fill it. Because if you fill it first, no one ever has to. If this is resonating for you, hit subscribe. I post new videos every week for new managers who are thrown into the role without a roadmap. Those two directions, up with your boss and down with your team, are the ones most people think about. The one no one talks about is lateral. Your peers, committees, stakeholder request. And it might be the one draining you most. The third direction is lateral. The work you get pulled into from peers, from cross-functional committees, from stakeholders. This one is tricky because nobody handed you any rules for it. So you're just finding your way and filling in the gaps. Here's how it shows up. In meetings. Let's say you're in a team meeting with your peers. Something isn't getting resolved. There's a lot of talking around it, confusion, no clear owner. And then you step in. You say, I know how to fix it. I'll follow up, and you end up leaving that meeting with more action items that you came in with. So here's what you don't realize. You are training people to give you the work because they know you're going to fill it in, you're going to take it. Noticing a problem doesn't make you responsible for solving it. Another place that I've seen boundaries crossed in this area is with peer requests. A colleague asks you to help with something outside of your scope. It may feel small. You say yes one time. It happens again. And again. Because over time, if you keep doing it, availability becomes the expectation, and then expectation becomes assumption. And assumption is a boundary that's already been set, just not by you. So the move here is simple, but admittedly difficult. You can say something like, I'd love to help, but I have some pressing deadlines. Or simply, that's not something I can take on right now. You don't need a long explanation. You just need to be clear in your response. Here's what I want you to understand. It doesn't matter which area these extra requests are coming from, whether it's from your boss, your peers, your team, they can be coming from different directions, but if you don't set boundaries, it's the same cost to you. And here's what I want you to hear before you end this video. Not everyone is going to like your boundaries. Some bosses are going to push back. Some team members will test the boundaries. Some work cultures will make you feel like you're asking for too much. That's real, and I'm not going to sit here and say that setting boundaries are easy. But here's the choice in front of you. Burnout or boundaries? Those are the two options. And if you're working somewhere that really needs you to be run down to function as a leader, that's not a boundary problem. That's a culture problem, and you should start looking elsewhere. Because leadership doesn't have to end in burnout. If you want support on navigating your first management role, subscribe. I'm here every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.